At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is recording it by the Edge, the Eagle, the town of Great Barrington, CTSB, and other members of the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items of those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may, in fact, be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. So Brandy, if you want to do a roll call vote of your board to start before we break.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. Thank you. Pedro Pachano.
Here.
Malcolm Fick.
Here.
Jackie Kane.
Here.
Jonathan Henkin.
Here.
Jeremy Ega.
Here.
Brandy Nelson here. And Steve, I'll just say, like, you're a little bit garbly. I don't know if you're able to get a little closer to the owl or talk directly to it, but
Someone just texted me that too, so I'm gonna.
okay.
Is that any better?
That is better.
Okay, I've moved it closer.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call of the Great Barrington Select Board. Lee Davis.
Here.
Eric Gabriel.
Here.
Garfield Reed.
Here.
And Elliott.
Here.
And Steve Bannon here. As I said when the meeting began, there's elevator problems in the town hall. So at the suggestion of the Attorney General, we are holding this completely remotely. And we are going to wait until 5 more minutes to actually start the meeting. There are signs on the door at front. So if someone showed up at 5, this will give them some time to get home and link in. So we will wait about 5 minutes. Okay, it is now 5:10, so we will resume the joint meeting of the Select Board and Planning Board. We will start with an update on the joint Select Board Planning Board Housing Subcommittee. And I realize we've all done this before during the pandemic, but it would be nice to all be in the same room to have a kind of free-flowing discussion. So we'll do the best we can, maybe raise hands, and we'll figure a way to make this work the best we can. Lee, do you want to give us a brief update?
Sure. So the subcommittee is comprised of myself, Jeremy Higa, Malcolm Fick, and Garfield Reed. So 2 members of the Select Board and 2 members of the Planning Board. And we have brought forward many proposals to the Select Board and the Planning Board, including in the town meeting in 2022, we brought forward a short-term rental bylaw to town meeting, which was approved overwhelmingly. Since then, we have worked on a housing initiative worksheet that has brought forward about at least 20 different initiatives. And meticulously, we've been going through looking at the pros and cons of initiatives, seeing how much staff time is needed, looking at the effort involved. And we've gone through this housing worksheet and have worked with Chris Rembold to determine what's actually realistic for the town to bring forward. We've also brought 2 initiatives to the Planning Board and the Select Board meeting. One was a tax exemption for owners of affordable year-round rental housing, which has not been discussed yet, but that's one initiative that we've discussed and brought forward. Another one is the real estate transfer fee to support affordable and workforce housing, which I believe the Select Board will be talking more in detail at our meeting on Monday. And really keeping an eye on the urgent need to mitigate the housing crisis. And, we're looking at both home ownership opportunities and rental opportunities on, a wide spectrum of housing. So we're looking at, income, we're looking at types of housing. So, we're really bringing different initiatives to the Select Board and the Planning Board so that we can really work together to address the housing crisis as we know it. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we are.
Thank you very much. Comments from either Planning Board or Select Board?
Yes, Steve, do you mind if I go ahead?
Please do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. So Lee, thank you so much. I really appreciate the work you guys are doing, and Malcolm and Jeremy have been great at providing monthly updates as to what the progress has been, and sharing the summary spreadsheet that you guys have put together. In terms of housing, I think we've all got tons of work to continue doing. One thing I wondered if it would be useful for us to have a discussion on kind of where we are in terms of the mandate that was put together for the subcommittee, whether or not that mandate has been met and needs to either be revisited, whether we have actionable items on our plates that we should work on implementing and let you guys take a break while we do some implementation. That's the kind of discussion I was hoping that this group could have. Where do we see that subcommittee going forward? Do we need to look at the mandate? So I had asked Chris to add to our packets the original subcommittee mandate. I think it's on page 5.
Actually, the original is on page 2, Brandy, I
On
think,
page 2.
which is the minutes from the meeting that established the subcommittee.
In terms of that highlighted statement, subcommittee will work on providing information about.
Right. I mean, that seems to be the only mandate that the subcommittee has from this joint committee.
I don't remember the genesis of the subcommittee mandate that's more well developed, Malcolm, and maybe Pedro, do you have any insight into that?
Well, on page 5, what you were referring to was the minutes from the first meeting.
Right.
So this is how
Which
the
lays out the
committee at the
subcommittee
time,
mandate.
none of which the members are still on the committee. And I had never actually seen this before this came
Yes,
out.
so Brandy, we're kind of the 4 of us are members that have recently stepped on, but just looking at what's on the website.
Yeah, that's what I was doing
what
too,
it-
because
what
on
it
the
says
website
is-
is,
Yeah, so it says this subcommittee will assess policies, programs, and suggest actions that allow for the implementation of a wide range of housing types to service our community. Importantly, the subcommittee focuses on areas where there is unmet need in housing types vital for the economic health of the town. So
Where did that come from, Lee?
that's on the
I
select
don't
board.
know
That's
that. I don't know
something
who wrote that. That's
I
been on-
wrote that. I
Oh,
wrote
did you?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was
Worthy.
when I was the
Okay.
chair of the board, we asked that we had a presence on the website, and so they asked me to write a sort of mandate,
Oh, okay.
and that's what that is.
Great.
So I guess the question is that the mandate that the select board and the planning board want the subcommittee to?
So I
Right.
guess my question is, the reason for this being brought up, do we feel that maybe we should be talking about identifying, goals or key performance indicators? We feel that, the subcommittee is going wayward. I'm just curious where we're thinking to go with this conversation.
From my perspective, I'd like to see us move as much towards implementation and focus our energy on a few actionable items, tackling a few of those things in that priority list and working towards implementing, and then sort of come back and evaluate the priority list, see if there's anything new that needs to be worked in, and then implement those so that we manage everybody's capacities. We're dealing with people that are, let's just be honest with ourselves. A lot of us are volunteers. We're working this into additional working schedules. So what can we reasonably take on and implement so that we can show progress and not feel too overwhelmed by a great big list and backlog of activities.
If I may say something, that is certainly something that I agree with. It's something that I had asked for at the last meeting. And I think we pretty much agree with, and I think Malcolm also agreed that I think implementation is where we need to go now. And we've kind of narrowed that down. As Lise had said, she has more of the defined things there in front of her. I don't, but that is certainly where I believe we should be going myself. So I thought that was the idea and where we should be heading as well. The things that we can work on.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the ways in which we have been working together is that there's so many ideas that, we could put forward to support housing in our town. So, initially what we did is as a subcommittee, we brought forward anything that we'd heard of. So whether it was, incentives. It was way to create housing. It was, ways to protect affordable housing. So we put this all in this housing initiative summary, which, I'd be happy to share on screen, or I know that that you have it, Brandy. But basically what we did is we categorized, let's say the 20 different ideas that we came up. And then we meticulously went through them saying, what's the responsible entity? Is it town staff? Is it planning board? Is it select board? Then we talked about an action and a strategy, what are we actually trying to do? And for instance, create affordable units from blighted properties. So what's the benefit? What's the nature of the work? What's the impact? What effort is it? Is it high, medium, low? What's the cost? So, and what's the possible staff role? So, I think we've done a really excellent job, because there really is different ways to approach the housing crisis. And what we then have done is said, okay, what's actually realistic? What's the lowest hanging fruit? And so we've kind of nicked off a few. And, whether that is something that the planning board wants to take forward and look at our list, or the select board, it is a heavy lift. I will definitely say that for 4 people that, are quite busy, it's a heavy lift. But we're also helping, Chris Rembold, because I think if we weren't doing it, a lot of this would probably come down to, unfortunately, on his shoulders. So I feel like we're really helping that department out a lot as well. So
Definitely. Oh, absolutely. And I don't want to diminish any work that's been done thus far. I mean, the spreadsheet, when Malcolm shared it, it was like, wow, mind blowing. There's a ton of stuff on here. I just want us to be action focused, and seeing that there's already 3 or 4 things that were designated to planning board. I feel like we should take those. We're at the point in our year, our cycle for town meeting, where we're looking at what do we want to put forward for town meeting 2024, what can we take on realistically, and in that context, maybe not taking in more information from the subcommittee right now, but just focusing on a few actionable items.
I think that's a good idea. If I may, Lee, I think that's a good idea. There's nothing wrong with meeting out some of the stuff that can be done by the planning board, and we can focus on something else. I think that's a great idea, to let them take some of these things that they believe they can finish.
So why don't we I'm sorry, Gloucester, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm fine.
No, I was just gonna say, why don't we take the ones that have planning board designation? We can take them up in terms of our discussion. I think, Chris, I don't know if you want to weigh in, but the bylaws incentivizing mixed use and affordable housing on Stockbridge Road, I think that one we tackled at town meeting to at least an extent. I don't think we got everything we wanted.
Brandy, do you want me to share this worksheet so people know what we're?
Sure. Yeah, and it's posted on the town's website, just so everyone knows. I don't believe it made it into the meeting.
I think that's an older version. So we have a kind of a working version. Does someone want to give me? Oh, I can share my screen. Okay, one sec. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is quite a heavy lift. So if you kind of just scroll down, you can see really some of the initiatives we've been working. This highlighted yellow column is the most recent work that we've done, and what we have sought some advice with, seeking Chris Rembold's opinion is going through some of the initiatives and having his thoughts on, really the lift that would be needed for town staff. So that's
could you scroll left?
Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah, I can make this smaller if you guys want.
No.
Can you guys see this?
Yeah,
So I mean, obviously this is a lot. This is a lot.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
Yeah, this is a lot this is just to kind of give you a sense of the work that has really gone into this. But when it says responsible entities, and by all means, some of this is very subjective, but you can kind of see select board, SB, planning board. So
scrolling through that list, it looks like the planning board has checked all the boxes that are things assigned to us.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so, and the beauty of having, you know, two members of the planning board and two on this committee and two members of the select board is that, you know, the hope is that the members of the planning board would share this information saying, hey, you know, the housing subcommittee flagged this possible proposal or initiative. Is this
Mhm.
something we want to revisit? So really, the subcommittee is kind of working on bringing forward initiatives to either the planning board, or the select board. So,
Do you see anything else coming planning board way?
well, in terms of what's on our list
Yeah,
or
actionable items. Like I said, we're in our planning phase, and that's part of the reason we wanted to have this joint meeting was to sort of get aligned with the select board. But, you know, just I was looking at the list that was posted on the town website, not this most current list. So as you scroll
It's just-
down, I just noticed planning board items. I don't know, Malcolm, if you've got any input on that. You know, you've got a keen sense of
Yeah,
what
I mean,
planning board is doing.
I to some extent, you know, the things get on the list because they come from the planning board. We're
Mhm,
not sitting around talking about things that the planning board should take up.
mhm.
Yeah.
And we're not, and vice, you know, the same with the select board. And perhaps the next steps here, and maybe the charter of what we should be doing as a committee is perhaps we should be presenting the planning board items. I should be, and Jeremy should be presenting planning board items to the planning board for feedback to the committee. And maybe the committee should be focusing at its next meeting on what items could be actionable in the near term.
Hmm. I agree.
That seems
So
reasonable.
I'd like to
Since
see
select
more
board can do the
feedback
same.
back and forth between the committees in terms of, you know, here's what's on the list. Is this something that we should act on?
Mhm.
yeah.
Steve said something that I don't think we
I think
heard.
that makes sense that the select board can do the same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's what happened, you know, so for example, the two initiatives that have been brought forward so far, well, actually, I guess the three. So it was the short-term rental bylaw, the exemption for rent, you know, affordable housing and the real estate transfer fee. You know, those are coming towards the select board because that's something that the select board could initiate. And I would think that the planning board would do the same. Anything that, you know, is really in the planning board's hands to take the lead on, that the members of the planning board that are on the subcommittee would bring that to the planning board's attention. And same thing, you know, with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we have the ADUs, the discussion on ADU strategy. So that's right now being discussed by the Affordable Housing Trust. So
Good.
that's kind of where we are, but, you know, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's just more active participation by members of the select board and planning board, bringing our initiatives from the housing subcommittee to the, you know, to the committees, to the boards.
Well, I think it's also that the board's making time for that, and it may take months before they all get to the boards, because the boards are pretty busy agendas.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would like to see more two-way communication as opposed to just the subcommittee being
Yeah,
out there on its
absolutely.
own.
Yeah.
So, oh, go ahead, Lee.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, you know, we open up our meetings with, you know, each member talking about what's happening on their board. So whether it's a select board or planning board, you know, with Garfield possibly talking about the Affordable Housing Trust. So we all kind of are talking about anything that's housing related, kind of checking in, saying, yeah, hey, what's the planning board talking about? What's the select board talking about? So, you know, perhaps we can do a better job of that, or perhaps this could be an item that the planning board has on their agendas, and same with the select board.
Okay, yeah, we've had for a time, and maybe we need to bring it back, a standing item on open discussion on housing. So you know, we'll continue to revisit that. But again, yeah, I'm very supportive if we want to move towards being more action focused. You guys have put this enormous, really comprehensive list together, and where we can, you know, affect change. I think that's going to help us. I know from my standpoint on the planning board, I sometimes feel like all we can do is kind of set the table with the zoning. We can't make people build. I think the select board's got a little more power to create different kinds of incentives, within what is allowed at the state level. And, we have to put our heads together on other creative approaches. So, okay. So in terms of the overall mandate, is everyone comfortable with the mandate as it's listed on the town government webpage? Do we want to endorse that formally as a group since we're all together?
Could we read that again?
Or I have it up. It says, the subcommittee will assess policies, programs, and suggest actions that allow for the implementation of a wide range of housing types to service our community.
Okay.
And then it says, the rest of it, Brandy, do you have the rest of it?
Importantly, the subcommittee focuses on areas where there is an unmet need in housing types vital for the economic health of the town. And then it just says it's comprised of 2 select board members and 2 planning board members.
Good. Well, Pedro wrote that. It's time we endorsed it.
Yeah.
I do believe I ran it by our committee before, back in the day before it was put up here. So
2019 then? Sometime back in 2019?
yeah, pre-pandemic, but it'd be nice to get the select board endorsement. That would be nice.
I would be glad to take a motion to endorse the mandate as on the website, as put on the website.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
So I have a motion and I have a second. So any discussion from select board? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Lee,
Aye.
Eric. Aye. Garfield,
Aye.
Ben,
Aye.
and I. It's unanimous.
Should the planning board do the same thing?
I don't see any harm.
Yeah.
I move we endorse the statement of purpose on the website.
So
I'll second that.
actually, I had second, I don't know if a select board member had seconded it before. I thought we were doing a joint vote. So I don't know if they want to redo it.
Oh, did you second the select board
Yeah,
motion?
'cause
Okay, I thought it was Eric. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I thought it was a joint
Eric,
motion.
Eric, will you
Eric,
take-
might-
Can I
Will you
second
take a
that?
second? Yeah, so we'll
Second,
change it.
second.
to Eric.
Done.
okay,
My
so-
mistake. Thank you, Jeremy.
thanks.
Jeremy, do you want a second for the planning board?
No, I think it was already seconded.
Oh, okay. Malcolm and who? Pedro?
I second it.
Okay. Thank you. Then we'll do roll call vote. Pedro,
Aye.
Malcolm,
Aye.
Jonathan,
As a former member, I will abstain.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Brandy, aye. All right. Wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Move ahead on the agenda to discuss the implementation and action on select board priorities that correlate with the planning board priorities. Chris, you want to guide us through that?
Sure, happy to. Steve, Brandy, correct me if I'm wrong. This is an item that came up in planning board meetings. They do get updates on the select board's semi-annual meeting to set priorities. Every 6 months, the select board meets to do that. And I do update the planning board, but the planning board was keen to review those and hear from the select board if there are ways that the planning board can help. Again, this is not necessarily housing items, but other items that may be of a priority for the select board to accomplish. And the planning board is either listed as one of the responsible entities or could play a supporting role.
Chris, do you want to go through the items specifically? So
We certainly could do that.
I had made a note, Chris, if you want me to sort of like jump ahead, just in terms of affordable and workforce housing and aging in place, which you had on your high priority list. We'd be interested in hearing what thought process you have there, and maybe that's something Chris can provide us at our next meeting. But that one had jumped out at me, as had master plan review and zoning enforcement, both of which are on tonight's discussion. So,
Okay,
but if
so-
there was anything else.
yeah, so I think that's a good idea for Chris to update the affordable and workforce housing aging in place at the next planning board meeting. And then the other two are already on tonight's agenda, so we'll discuss those.
And Brandy, did you see this as a time where the planning board wanted to provide input to the select board, or do you just want to make sure that we get this on a planning board agenda in advance of the next time the select board does this?
Yes, I think I'd like to get it on the agenda again in terms of our planning for the coming year. Is there a zoning initiative that we should focus on that could help advance this priority item? You know, we are having sort of those open discussions on housing types. I had not been thinking about aging in place or, you know, we talk about affordable and workforce a lot, but that aging in place component would be a little twist on what we've discussed so far.
Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, I can maybe add some insight to that, Brandy. That might have been something that I brought forward. At least I talked about this in the housing subcommittee, and the thought is, you know, many of our longtime residents that possibly are seniors are having, you know, are struggling with wanting to stay in their home, but needing the funds perhaps to ensure that they can continue living there. So it might be upgrades to their bathrooms. It might be a ramp. It might be, you know, something that gives them the ability to remain in their home. So it was more of a discussion that I think originated on housing subcommittee level, and this would take, you know, in a form maybe in grants or, you know, identifying needs of seniors. You know, what do they need to actually age in place rather than having to leave their homes. So, you know, whether that's making a home single floor that, you know, that if there's only a bathroom, let's say on the second floor, we might be able to provide some grants or some funds to enable them to have a one level living arrangement. So it kind of was one of these brainstorming ways of really identifying a need that we can see that's growing in our community of seniors that, you know, are living in homes or rentals and, you know, wish to remain there, but need certain upgrades to do so. So I think that might have where that the inception of that idea came from.
So you're not really talking things like age restricted communities or
well, that's I'm not sure about the other members, but that's along the lines I was thinking of as upgrades to homes to make them accessible for seniors.
Okay. All right. I don't know, Chris, if you've seen some of the data from the, I think it's in the community survey, the federal community survey that comes out on a periodic basis on which age of housing stock tends to be more accessible from a ADA standpoint. And I would say probably the majority of Great Barrington's housing stock is in the age range that is not accessible. So I'm sure that's a tremendous need if people want to age within their homes, because old houses tend to be narrow doorways and lots of stairs and things like that. So
Exactly. So
okay.
Well, if I can just throw my 2 cents in, I really think it's something we definitely need to stay focused on. As of the last numbers that I've read, that I believe we had in the housing initiative was 23.6% Great Barrington is elderly. So that's a quarter of your population just about. So I really think it's something we definitely can't put in the back burner.
Yeah. Good point.
Brandy, you want to do the zoning compliance and enforcement?
Yeah, sure. Zoning compliance and enforcement, you know, we're happy to have a discussion with the select board on compliance and enforcement. It's sort of a perennial discussion at the planning board as it pertains to, you know, how do we assure that site plans and special permits are implemented consistent with the approvals that are granted. And the planning board has no enforcement authority of and by itself. You know, we do see from time to time, and we respond to public comments from time to time about you know, why something got built a certain way, and you know, when it's inconsistent with some of the conditions maybe of an approval. We don't really have an answer, and I recognize the building department has a tremendous load on them. But we wondered with the turnover that's going to be happening in that department, if there's an opportunity to sort of set a tone around the importance of compliance with the various conditions of permits. I think there's a focus on making sure the building code is met, and that is absolutely critical. But there's a lot of energy spent by a lot of boards in this community to include provisions that meet goals and objectives in our master plan around sustainability and accessibility and walkability and these things that are not necessarily required in the building code, but are things that this community has voted on as being important aspects of the community. And those don't always get remembered in terms of implementing various site plans and special permits. So maybe it's an opportunity for us to set a tone and set a standard that would be a little bit different from where we've been thus far.
Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess, Brandy, in how do you see that? Because I've noticed several times myself that, all the boards do a lot of work, and then say somebody goes and does what they want, and then they come back again and ask for forgiveness, but let us divide a few more lots here. So how do you, I do think there should be enforcement besides, and does it necessarily need to be on our building inspector, or could there be like another agency or subcommittee of the planning board or whichever board it does, doing thorough walkthroughs or staged to make sure the house is where it's supposed to be, the divisions are where they're supposed to be. I guess, how do you vision that if you guys have been discussing it? Do you see it just as like say another hat the building inspector would wear, or do you see it as a person standing on their own?
Yeah, I'm hesitant to put more on the building department, recognizing their really large load. That said, it is a natural place where approved plans are brought forward and construction plans are granted permits and inspections are happening on a regular basis. I think we're only starting to kick around ideas, but an example I can give that has maybe potential, and we've raised it at the planning board, is in terms of provisions on Route 7 for street trees. The planning board, put forward these Route 7 landscape provisions a number of years ago. They were voted on at town meeting. We require them for site plan approvals. I see little trees get planted in the right of way, and then they die, and then nothing happens. And so, as a community, we've said we really appreciate these streets with the mature trees, and from a sustainability and a climate change standpoint, those are very beneficial to our community. But there's no ongoing monitoring of that. Now, I have not talked to the tree committee about this, but is there an opportunity for the tree committee to kind of partner up with the planning board and say, hey, can you maybe do some education and outreach to these property owners who now have this condition on your plan? Is there a means where we can provide additional support to make sure that certain conditions are implemented? So maybe we can share the load of enforcement depending on the various provision of it. And I'd be happy to take suggestions from people, but I think in a few critical areas, we really want, where as a community, we've said different things are really important to us. I think we want to make sure there is some enforcement, even if it's outside of what the building code requires.
I agree.
And I think
Maybe this is a time for the select board to put an agenda item later in the year and talk to the town manager and assistant town manager how we would best can implement something like this.
Yeah. I
Randy,
see
if I-
this a lot
if-
with lighting as well. So that's
If I could just add, just some clarification for the select board. What Brandy's describing is really the site plan approvals that come through our board that we usually see at the beginning of a project. So obviously when people are proposing projects and we all see them at the, they're proposing the projects without giving us the full fleshed out idea. And by the time the full fleshed out idea comes together, it could often be a completely different project, despite the fact that the site plan that we approved is from the very beginning. So yes, as Brandy said, we see trees that are, not implemented the way they should be, lighting, as Lee mentioned. So there are lots of things like that. So that's the kind of enforcement that I think we're looking for, because otherwise we're just kind of wasting time, going through these site plans.
Pedro, can I ask you a question? So what you say makes sense. So is there a way we can ask that if someone makes substantial changes, and that's a loaded word, that it goes back for a second site plan review?
Yeah, I think that it should be obvious. And there should likely be somebody, or that's overseeing this stuff, where they compare the finished product when a project, before a project gets a C of O, for example. There are certain requirements that projects need to meet to get permits, and as they're going through their inspections, the site plan review should be out there, and all the other reviews that go through the town. So yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not against this. Well, we're walking the fine line of people saying that Great Barrington is too difficult to get permits through. Now, special permits to me are especially different, because they are indeed special permits, and they should be difficult to make sure that we're doing the right thing. But I also think that I don't want to waste people's time, and I don't want projects to come out substantially different than they started without the board seeing them, because most of us are volunteers, or number of hours we do, and we have a vision for this town, and we should see that vision through on these things.
Yeah, Steve, I agree with you. And if you come to the planning board meetings, occasionally you'll hear me talk about the process. But as long as we have the process in place, it would be nice if we can enforce it and make sure that the community is getting, what the process is mandating.
So let's put that in the select board's lap. And we will come back to the planning board. We will not implement anything without the planning board having some discussion on it.
Great. No, that sounds wonderful. Thank you.
I hope that worked both ways. That's what I was hoping to hear, that we'd have a vote and take a look before anything's really decided.
It is frustrating after a project is built and we see it, and it may be very nice, but it's not the project we thought we approved. Yeah. I feel your pain. Master plan status review. Chris, do you want to talk about that, or?
Sure, thanks, Steve. Randy, this is the item really that brought these two boards together a couple of years ago to start holding joint meetings. Was a regular, or at least we tried to make it regular until COVID, review of the master plan implementation and status of key items. Included in your packet tonight is a brief evaluation following the implementation and strategies chart, the 12 pages from the master plan. And a quick note on where we are as a town with implementing those action items, those strategies and goals from the master plan. You'll see we've made a lot of progress, particularly in the field of housing and field of zoning. Other items such as Main Street, downtown, and the design of downtown, landscaping, the general feel and character of town, protecting it, enhancing it in ways. In other places, we have not been as successful, particularly where it depends on private sector partnerships or private sector development, or indeed a private parcel of land. So where we had hoped to see redevelopment, for example, in the Houstonic Mills, that's not something that's necessarily under our control. But the boards and the town voters have changed the zoning and made some other things available there to encourage the redevelopment up there. So in some places we've been very successful, and others not so successful, where we're relying on, as I said, the private sector or volunteers I think that's where we've stumbled the most. I shouldn't say stumbled, but that's not a good word. Where we have not been as successful as we wanted. On the other hand, things are changing since we wrote the master plan. We started writing that in 2010, 2011. It was published in 2013. So that's a long time ago now. A lot of things have changed. The town has grown and changed in different ways, probably, than some people have thought. And so I think both the planning board and the select board have expressed an interest in looking to update the master plan now that we have new data out from the census 2020, as well as interim data. The town is now past the 10% affordable housing threshold as of last month. We have a changing economy, very different way of doing things in the world than we had 10, 12 years ago. So it's a good opportunity for the boards to review the master plan, to look at that implementation list and discuss whether or not an update of the master plan in full or in part should be a priority for the coming years, next year, the year after. And if that is the case, in the lead up to budgeting, to try to think about what that means for town resources that we should devote to that effort.
Comments?
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. I'm not hearing anyone, so we'll move on to the.
Oh, wait, no, I'll add one thing.
Okay.
Just in terms of changes too, I think the other thing that our master plan has not addressed really are the issues we're seeing around climate and resiliency in our community. And I noticed your select board list included things that are new, including cooling and heating centers, right? And so I think that would be a really important area we'd want to address, climate and resiliency issues for our community. I think that can span a number of different areas, from infrastructure to supporting seniors to supporting individuals that don't have cooling when they need it in a heat wave, issues around flooding and culverts and things like that. So I think that's a big area where we could have an update. And in terms of what I was hoping we could do with this is, Chris has given us this most recent update with the packet tonight. If we could review it individually, and maybe Steve, you and I can talk about whether or not it makes sense for us to have a specific meeting just to go through some of this. We can maybe review individually with our boards, kind of where we're at. But, we're trying to continue to work towards implementation on as many of these items that are under our jurisdiction. And Chris, I just want to give kudos to Chris just in terms of how effective he's been in helping implement the master plan. This has not been a master plan that sat on a shelf. I mean, this community has worked really hard to bring the vision and the plan to reality. So thanks to everybody who's doing that.
Yeah, I'd like to second, kudos to Chris, because I know this is a heavy lift, and thank you for your detail on bringing us up to date on where we are. So thank you.
I guess following everybody's footsteps there, and also as far as global warming, all that sort of stuff in the master plan, the Board of Health put up a suggestion as far as the sustainable waste and composting and all that. And I think that is a very important thing that we need to address a lot more significantly moving forward as well. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, the next item. The planning board's plan for community conversations.
We don't have a firm plan yet, Steve, but just in general, kind of in the context of thinking about a master plan update coming out, in the next couple of years, the planning board's been having some preliminary discussions around engagement and outreach, kind of across a variety of different spaces in the community. I think we'll probably start with outreach to various boards and committees, and then more generally to different stakeholder groups in the community that maybe we'd initially engaged with the master plan effort, and just start doing some listening sessions. So I think in terms of the select board's role there, our hope was that, we would have your support in that kind of engagement and outreach. On the planning board, we each are on different additional committees, but I think amongst what are there, 10 of us here or 11 of us here, we touch a lot of different spaces in town. So, if we would like to put together kind of a outline communication plan and then share that out with you guys and then start engaging the community either via Zoom or in person, to start listening to what some of the big issues are for folks in our community.
I look forward to that. I think it's a great idea.
I second, it's a wonderful idea.
Great. We'll lean into you to help us with the outreach then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Anyone else on either board before I go to citizen speak? Saying no one. Citizen speak for the joint committee. Michelle Lubert.
Good evening, Michelle Lubert, 70 Division Street. First, I want to thank the chairs of both boards and Chris for being able to pull off the meeting tonight. I know it was at the 11th hour, so but I think it went pretty smooth, what you did. One comment I have to make is regarding the real estate transfer fee. I know there'll be a more in-depth conversation August 7th, but I just wanted to make a couple comments. First off, Lee, the sheet you called up, I'd like to have a copy of that. I did do a public records request, and the copy I received through a public records request is not the copy that was up on the screen. So asking for a copy of that by email, if that's possible. Also, there's a lot of comments tonight regarding aging in place, seniors staying in their home, etc. I am a senior, and we're pushing the initiative envelope here to the point where some of these initiatives, because of taxes or transfer fees, may force my husband and I out of our home, which is counterintuitive to what you're trying to do. I do have to say, I would like an explanation. I keep hearing low-hanging fruit. I don't know what that means. Am I the low-hanging fruit? I'm a single, I'm a resident in my home. Am I the low-hanging fruit? So I'd like an explanation on that, if not tonight, at Monday night's meeting. I did attend the July 25th meeting. As a matter of fact, I listened to it 2 more times on CTSB TV. And one comment was made that shook me to the core. One member of the committee said, there will be a point where you have to figure if you're willing to take a hit for other people to be able to afford to live in this town. I'm getting pretty bruised, and there's just so many hits people can take. So what I'm asking tonight is that you listen. I know these initiatives, they're wrapped up in a bow, they sound great and everything, but think about the people you're harming. I know there was talk at the housing meeting about exemptions, but no solid statement on what those exemptions would be. I know they'll be discussed later down the line, but I want to know up front. I'm already doing my homework on this. I have a 3-inch binder right here. I'm going by, I'm reaching out to people, I'm talking to people. So there's going to be opposition, and even if I stand alone, I'll oppose it because it's just too much to tax me if I sell my home, the last financial leg I have. So I think you have to open your minds a little more and think of everyone. And also, I welcome people coming into our community, but we're not taking care of the people who are here. A good portion of your community doesn't even have healthy, clean drinking water. And so now you're telling them they're going to have to pay more taxes. In my opinion, we should get a discount. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else in citizen speak? Seeing no one, the joint meeting of the select board and planning board is adjourned by unanimous consent And in about 1 minute, the select board regular meeting will start.
Great, thank you all.
It was a very good meeting.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So I'll give my one attendance update. At the height, there were 12 panelists and 21 attendees. Looks like everyone shifted and we're ready to move ahead. So call to order the select board regular meeting, and it happens to be almost 6 o'clock, 5:58. It was not posted for 6, but it's pretty close, so not bad. Start with select board's announcements and statements. Start with Ben.
I just want to give a shout out to everyone involved with the Tri-Town Connector. I got to take my first ride on it a few weeks ago. It's a great resource for everyone in our community. So if you are looking to get around in town, I highly recommend checking out the Tri-Town Connector. That's it for me.
Garfield.
I have something, but I'm not quite sure this is the forum, so maybe I'll speak with you, Stephen, and see if this is something I can bring to the board next time.
Sounds like a plan, Garfield. Great. Eric
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
and Lee.
One thing, please. The Community Preservation Committee met during the week, and I have some dates to share with everyone. The step, we are going to be accepting off-cycle applications, which will have more information in detail regarding that, but I just want to give some dates for everyone to mark their calendars. The step 1 applications for this off-cycle will be due August 28th, and the Community Preservation Committee will be meeting on September 5th. And then the step 2 applications for the off-cycle will be due September 11th. And the committee will be meeting on September 14th. So there'll be more details about the application process, but I just wanted to give those dates so people could mark the dates, and more details will be forthcoming. Thank you.
The only thing I have is that tomorrow night is the car show from the fire department's annual car show, which is a lot of fun. And if I've looked at the weather correctly, tomorrow is going to be beautiful. Not as warm as last year. I think last year almost hit 90 and it was a little oppressive. 78 for the high tomorrow night, and starts at 4 o'clock. So that I ask you to, if you can make it, come on down, and it's a real good community event. It's a lot of fun. Okay, moving ahead. Town manager's report, we're skipping overtime. Town manager is not here. Okay, the previous business continued from June 22nd to July 10th. The Housatonic Waterworks temporary relief for residents, customers. I think we started to narrow it down at the last meeting, where we thought it would be a good idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, to open it up not just to water filters, but to any expense that Housatonic Waterworks Great Barrington residents had with the receipts. I don't think we've narrowed down how much money, but I think that's what we talked about. So thoughts where we will go on this?
Sorry, Steve, you broke up a little bit at the end there. Can you just repeat that?
Yeah, so I think at the last meeting, we decided not to just talk about water filters. We talked about any expense that a Housatonic resident who had Housatonic water had. If they could have receipts, we would reimburse them once we had the money. But I don't think we had a monetary number, $250, $400. So I think that's where we were. But what I think I said at the end, and I'll listen to myself next time, is that we don't have the money yet, so there's not an urgency. The money's not in hand for the town, but I think we need to get closer to a solution on this so that we can approve a final summary.
Well, the few things I was thinking about is I would prefer if we did stay along the lines of filtration methods. I don't necessarily mean whole house filters or you know, a big elaborate system, but even they make some they have some well-made filtration systems that can sit on counter. And so it's not generating a lot of garbage and waste, and it's still efficiently taking care of the problems that we suffer from in Housatonic Waterworks territory. So that's the way I'm leaning. I do understand with people with having their water delivered, you know, they might be looking for reimbursement, but I think I would like to start out somewhat where we were going initially with whether it's a whole house filtration system or something along the Berkey lines, where it sits on your counter and you just run tap water through it. Because that would work out well for renters, seniors that can't lift the big 5-gallon buckets up or jugs of water up, and it's just less back and forth from the store. I think that's a good starting point personally, but I'm up to listening to what everybody else's feedback is.
Other thoughts?
Well, one thing I think we need to keep that at least the $500 that you had alluded to, maybe reimbursements of 200, 400. We haven't come to the figure yet, but we had initially stated $500. I don't want to walk back $500 unless we've had something that says if you don't need the extra, let's say $100, you can pass it to your neighbor or something. But I don't think we should do less than what we initially stated was the working capital.
Yeah, we didn't initially state anything, Garfield. This was an
We said
executive.
$500.
But this was an executive summary from the town manager for our thoughts. So I would not be in favor of giving I think it has to be receipt based. So someone spends $300 on a water filter, and you know, as Eric just described, then they would get the $300. If they spend $1,000, they would get the 500 as a maximum, if that's what we decided. But I think the 500 was only a suggestion or a starting point by the town manager and staff. So we could talk about it. Lee, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, but I didn't get it to be just a suggestion. And I think that's probably what people have heard in Housatonic. I don't know. I think I know that I'm pretty good when I remember numbers. I may not remember a lot of things, but I do remember numbers, and I definitely remember that.
Yeah, no, 500 is in there, but this was kind of a talking point for us to start. But I'm fine with that. We can talk about it. Lee, go ahead.
Yes, so thank you. So I absolutely understand Eric's point about filtration. Unfortunately, this is going to be a Band-Aid, and you know, whether it's $500 or $1,000 or $300, it's not going to do enough. But I would like to honor the people that have spent money on, you know, buying water or doing laundry, because you know, everyone is in need of some kind of reimbursement. And I think because this is already after the fact, I think that if someone is able to show a receipt that's directly linked to this crisis, that they should be able to get reimbursed. And, you know, going down the line, maybe we can, as to Eric's point, you know, really push filtration as a longer term solution. But I think because this has already happened and people have spent the money, I think, you know, reimbursing them for something that's related to this is probably the right thing to do, at least in my opinion.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think I'm leaning towards where Lee is at on this. It's just kind of like at this point, relief looks so different to so many people who have had to do so many different things while dealing with this. But almost kind of, I think, Lee, your idea of pushing people towards kind of what Eric said, like, I think we could make a really strong recommendation right now about what a sustainable solution, like a countertop filter can be. Give people ideas, but still leave it up to them. Like make our strong suggestion, but still give them the flexibility.
And just as a reminder, we've never done this before, may never do it again. This is round one. If we don't spend the 250,000, we can come up, for new criteria for the second round. So whatever we decide, this is not cast for forever. So.
I think we, yep, sorry.
Yeah, and I just, having this 250,000, I know, working in nonprofit world, we're always trying to leverage funds. So, a lot of times we'll go to a donor and we'll say, hey, we have, $100,000, who's going to match this and double the effort. And I'm just wondering, is there a creative way to, put it out there? Is someone able to match this? Is there a way to leverage this funds either through the state, through the feds? Private donors, not donors, but, private citizens, because it is a lot of money, but we need more. So I'm just trying to think of, is there a way to leverage this substantial fund, pot of money? And, I don't know, there might be some initiative out there that we might be able to seek to try to double this money.
Kirk, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess just one of my concerns is, who are we tasking the receipts to? And I get it. I understand why Lee and Ben and Garfield are saying that, but I guess I'm just wondering how that's monitored and who we're tasking that onto. And how that's going to be done. And I'm all for it. I understand a lot of people do have to go and do laundry elsewhere. And I have a feeling most people probably get some sort of water, whether it's delivered to their house or they're going to the refill centers or just buying a bunch of water at the store. And I understand all that, but I guess I'm just wondering what that looks like for town staff and whether they're verifying or, I guess I just, it just seems like it opens up a lot of work for a lot of people. And I'm just, I guess I'm just wondering how we're going to task that out.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good point. And it's going to be up to the town manager to assign that task. But I think what you're echoing is my concern is if we say we'll reimburse up to $500 for anything that has to do with, the inconvenience, and I use that word because I can't think of another one, but it's more than that, of Housatonic water. The problem is someone may come to us and say, every week I buy 3 cases of water at Big Y and Lee, but I don't save my receipts. Is that fair to me? Where if you buy a water filter for 300 or 500 or 1,000, you probably have that receipt. Right. It's a little more substantial. So it is a little concerning that the implementation of this may be unfair or problematic.
So I think, part of that is making this decision sooner than later. So people know ahead, oh, hey, I should start, saving my receipts, for that very reason, because a lot of times, yes, you might have not saved your receipt for the past year or so, but now if you're given the heads up that you will need to start saving your receipts, I think people will. And then to Eric's point about who's going to do this, heavy lift, which is going to be a lot of work, possibly we can get some volunteers together, a committee, some volunteers that could actually, really want to help us, in dealing with this crisis and work on sorting out the receipts. I don't know if we can do that, but, I can see that, people want to get together and try to help each other. So this might be an ideal way to get some residents involved.
Yeah, there's a couple of attendees who want to speak. I'm going to let them speak. So just give your name and address. Shay Patowski.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Shay.
Okay. So I'm assuming you're
Name
talking-
and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shay Petoskey, 10 Meadow Street, Housatonic.
Go right ahead.
I was raising my hand, but to be put so quickly, but I'm assume you're talking about the Housatonic Water Company issue?
Yes. We're
Okay.
talking about specifically, the only thing we're talking about is the reimbursement to Housatonic Water Company, residents of Housatonic, for how we're going to do the reimbursement.
Well, I have a related, but not exactly to that topic,
Yeah, we can do that during citizen speak if it's not related.
Okay,
Well, that would be more.
okay, I can wait.
Okay, Dominic Jacobs. Just unmute yourself.
Hi, Donna Jacobs, 260 Park Street. And as I'm listening to the discussion about how to distribute the relief to Housatonic Waterworks rate payers, it's obvious that y'all need some help. And I'm hearing a call for citizen volunteers. And I'd like to put my name forward to be helpful. And what I'm thinking of is that as we're discussing this one piece that Leah, I think, is aptly referred to as a Band-Aid, I think the whole crisis does need a more comprehensive approach.
Don, we need to stick to the topic at hand that's on the agenda.
Okay. So what I'm going to say about the reimbursement, it is a Band-Aid. I think you're spending an awful lot of time talking about this when the issues are much more complex, and I'm going to say need a more comprehensive approach. So if you want to go talking about, is it 500, is it 250, should they get receipts, should they not get receipts? I think a lot of time is being wasted, and I'll say that. But if you'd like some citizen volunteers to help out with this and collect receipts, I'm putting my name forward.
Thank you, Donna. We appreciate that.
Okay.
Let's see, Michelle LeBaire.
Michelle Louvier, 70 Division Street, Housatonic Water customer. There's good conversation going on here. I think the goal is trying to be as fair and equitable as you possibly can be with the amount of money you have. However, I agree with Eric on whatever it takes to help with filtering the water. My husband and I, we can't afford a lot, so ours isn't filtered. We're using our water. But I know a lot of people, we do buy some bottled water to have. I think there was discussion about reimbursing people if they have Berkshire Mountain. I'm just using Berkshire Mountain Spring as an example. If they have their receipt, a water filter, some money towards a whole house filter. I think when you, like, for example, I think you said you'd be going back a couple years on this. I didn't, I go to the laundromat, you know, I've had clothes ruined, bedding ruined. I don't have any documentation what it costs to replace that. As a matter of fact, just this Sunday, I spent 2 hours, I bought sponges, bleach and everything, trying to get the stains out of my toilets from the dirty water from the fire down the street. So I didn't save the receipt for that. So I think as Steve mentioned, like this is phase one, the phase one being more honed in on filtering the water, obtaining healthy water, and then build upon that, see how that goes, work out the kinks. So I do appreciate the effort and the discussion here, but I do agree with Donna. I don't think it's even a Band-Aid, to be honest with you, Scotch tape. But you got to work with what you got right now, and this is it. But I'd like to support Eric's suggestion on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Deborah Herman.
Deborah Herman, 373 North Plain in Housatonic. I just wanted, there was a mention of the Berkey filter. I just want to point out that the New York Times has reviewed that product negatively because it's not certified. And I just want to comment that it's very difficult to figure out what is an appropriate filter for the problems that exist in Housatonic water. And perhaps a small amount of this money could go towards getting some expert advice for people on what kinds of filters really do the job. And the second thing that I'll say is, everyone in Housatonic, everyone who has Housatonic water is affected by this problem. Some people maybe are less aware or have less money to spend on mitigating efforts. So I think the fairest thing and the easiest thing is to divvy it up among customers, and let's not worry about receipts. Everybody has suffered. Everybody has done what they can to mitigate the problem, and give them some advice on what are the less expensive ways, maybe the Berkey, but maybe some other things like, you know, under faucet filters that can help them. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. John Grogan.
Hey there. I have two things that I was.
Name and address, please.
I'm John Grogan, 360 North Plain Road, and I was chewing my dinner, so I'm sorry about that. Thing one is to Lee's point, looking for an angel to match the $250,000 that we've gotten. Some eye should be cast to the originator of the problem and ask them for some contribution to mitigating their customers' problems. In other words, talk to Housatonic Water and see if they can, you know, they're certainly asking, not shy about asking for money. Let's see if we can ask them for money too. Thing two, in my official capacity as with the Great Barrington Housing Authority, we want to be sure that every Housatonic Water customer, every unit that we have in Housatonic, in our housing authority complex, is eligible for some sort of reimbursement, whether it's seniors in apartments or families in the family units. And not just, there was some thought that perhaps you guys were thinking about looking at the housing authority as a whole and just giving us one contribution.
We never talked about that.
Okay, great. Then I don't have anything else to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anna Christine Stanton, go right ahead.
It's actually Toby Stanton, 69 Division Street. I don't know what everybody pays for their water bill. I know that ours is consistently over $75. My wife does a lot of laundry because she's a massage therapist and has sheets she's constantly doing, but we are never even close to what they allow us for the $45. So I don't know why he's asking for more money, since he's not able to produce clean water for us.
So we're talking only here because of what's on the agenda.
I am getting to the water filter system.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We have installed a water filter system, a whole house system. It's over $1,000. It also costs $160 something every 6 months to change the filters out. So the $500 that you're offering is, I know, I'm shocked that you're doing it this way. I kind of feel like there should just be a tax rebate for anybody who's using Housatonic Waterworks. That way you don't have to deal with all the receipts that are coming into town hall, people trying to get their money back. You're just creating like a little bit of a headache for the clerk there. So I would ask you to consider just giving everybody that's on the Housatonic Water a rebate. And the above counter water system is completely inadequate when you're trying to fill a bathtub for your kid to wash them at night. It's a joke. So please, we've been dealing with this water situation for a long time. As you may know, our garage burnt down. There's a problem with the line going underneath the train tracks up there. And I know this is not the time to talk about it, but I'm going to find out who's permitting, giving Fred Mercer to do the permits to fix this stuff, and then also who is checking on him. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jay Potowski.
Hi, Shay Petoskey, 10 Meadow Street. I just wanted to second and third Deborah Herman and Toby Stanton's things that they said about just a blanket reimbursement to all Housatonic customers versus trying to navigate collecting receipts. I have lost a lot of laundry to like severe stains when the water was brown, and I don't have receipts for all that. I don't have all the receipts for the water system filtrations I've had. Like there's just, we've all paid, we've all suffered, and some of us are better at saving receipts and not, but, and some people are better at having extra income to spend on whole house filtration systems. I don't have a whole house filtration system myself. But I think that every one of us should be reimbursed the same amount regardless of who spent what on where. Anyway, that's my sense. And so I wanted to just agree with Deborah Herman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So board, I think we have lots to think about. I think, again, the 250 is not in hand, so we're not holding up anyone getting their money. So let's put this off to another meeting and move ahead with the agenda. Because I think there's a lot to think about. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. New business. The Elizabeth Freeman Mural proposal is going to move to another agenda. Next is the Community Preservation Committee appointment of 2 citizens at large. There are 2 citizens, Martha Fick and Patricia Sharp, who are on the CPC, and their term is up and they would like to be reappointed for 3 years. There's a third person, Lauren E. Clark, who has put her name in also. So whoever, do I have a motion? I'll have a hand up, so Matthew O'Brien, go ahead. Just unmute yourself. What to do is just unmute yourself. There we go.
Are you waiting for me?
You had your hand up. You want to talk
I did. I put it down because you passed the water. I was going to speak about the Housatonic water situation.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I guess I'll have to contact you personally or whatever.
Sure, that'd be great.
All right, thank you.
Okay, is anyone? Is either Martha Fick, Patricia Sharp, or Lauren Clark here? Because I don't want to not give them a chance to speak if they'd like to.
I let Steve, this is Chris. I let Patricia and Martha know that they need not be present. You know, this was a rescheduled meeting, so it's difficult. But their letters of interest are already in your packet.
Exactly.
And you're right. Lauren was also interested in being appointed.
Do I have a motion? Let's do that.
I make a motion to reappoint Martha Fick and Patricia Sharp as the 2 citizens at large members of the Community Preservation Committee for terms of 3 years each to expire June 30th, 2026.
Second.
We have a motion by Lee, a second by Eric. Any discussion? It's not often we get 3 really good candidates, but I watched some CPC meetings. I try to watch them all, and the 2 members who are on it who are looking for reappointment do a really good job, and they attend all the meetings and they're thoughtful. So I'm very comfortable with that. Anyone else? Roll call vote. Ben.
Aye.
Garfield. Garfield, you're muted.
I think I want to abstain.
Eric
Aye.
and Lee.
Aye.
So it passes with 4 votes and no opposition. Okay, next we have the host community agreement for High Minded LLC, which is also known as Farnsworth. Kate McCormick is representing them. And Kate, I've given you permission to talk. I'll also give Alexander permission. So Kate, if you have anything you want to say before we go ahead, go right ahead.
Sure, Steve, thank you very much. Kathleen McCormick, I'm here on behalf of High Minded, which is also known as Farnsworth Fine Cannabis. I'm here tonight with Alexander Farnsworth, CEO. We are requesting an amendment to the host agreement, which is basically a renewal. And we are agreeing to the same basic terms that were also accepted in the last renewal and amendment moving forward. So we request that the select board approve this. If you want to ask any specific questions, we are here and willing to answer, but I know you guys have had a long meeting so far, so I won't talk just to talk.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a motion to approve the first amendment to the host community agreement for High Minded LLC doing business as Farnsworth Fine Cannabis that is in our packet?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Roll call vote. Ben?
Aye.
Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, Kate.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Next, to have a motion to appoint Andy Morrow as Veterans Grave Officer with a term to expire in 2028.
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion by Lee and a second by Eric. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Ben?
Aye.
Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. We have a recommendation to Governor Healy for the governor's seat on the Housing Authority. And we have one name that was put in, Maureen Meyer. Maureen is on the line. If you have any questions, let's take a motion first.
I make a motion to recommend Maureen Meyer for the governor's seat on the Housing Authority.
Second.
So I have a motion by Lee and a second by Garfield. Any discussion or questions of Maureen? There is a letter in our packet. Seeing none, roll call. Ben?
Aye.
Garfield?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Maureen, thank you very much for putting your name in.
Yep, thanks for coming aboard.
So next on the is a discuss a date for special town meeting in October. This meeting is specifically requested by the A-Town Regional School District Planning Board to vote on the school merger. The date that's out there right now is October 23rd, 2023. It's a Monday. It's actually a night we have a meeting, but that will move. We've started the process of seeing who is available. I'm gonna just let them clear through. We're working to make sure the moderator, town council, the site is all available. The hope of at least some people on the committee is that most of the 8 towns will have it on the same night, but very specifically that Sheffield and Great Barrington have it on the same night. So just want to make sure the board is okay with October 23rd at this point. I'm very tentative.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing anyone say no, so that's perfect.
Yeah.
There'll be much more to come on that. It's a little more complicated. You take one town to have a town meeting and multiply it by 8, and there's a lot of a lot of people to contact, a lot of locations, so we just want to start this as early as possible. Citizen speak. Michelle Laverne.
Hi, Michelle Rivera, 70 Division Street. Sorry, Steve, I almost cut you off on the special town meeting thing. Your voice kept fading in and out, and I couldn't hear much of what was discussed there. I think
I'll review it, Michelle.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. But I was wondering, that's a really critical meeting. I mean, a ton of work went into the 8-town merger proposal. And so it is my hope, even though a town can, that the warrant is not overburdened, because I think it's going to be a tough meeting to begin with. I just wanted to point that out. Also, I'm assuming citizens petitions may be accepted during previous to the special town meeting. And I was wondering when that would be. If you want to respond to that at the August 7th meeting, that's fine.
Yeah, we're not quite, I'll just respond to the first part. We don't normally respond to citizen speak, but we are trying to keep the agenda as light as possible. I think using the words housekeeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so because the date is so tentative, I haven't even seen any. There will be citizens petition because there have to. You know, I'm not saying we wouldn't do it anyways, but I don't think we have a choice. But we have not set the date for that.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I just couldn't hear a lot of what was said.
Sorry,
Also, I want to bring up Toby Stanton spoke. We live next door to the Stantons, and that was a horrific experience to go through. I was actually attending a planning board meeting and just happened to glance out my window and saw the flames engulf the garage and start going up the trees. So I had to bow out of the planning board meeting on that. But there's a fire hydrant right in front of my house, and I have it on video where the firefighters were struggling to get water from that hydrant. My husband and I are now terrified that if our house starts on fire, even with all the taxes we pay and all the money we pay Housatonic Water, our house may burn to the ground. Now, let me point this out. This occurred with the Formel fire. I was coming home from Great Barrington. I saw the tankers getting water on North Plain Road. I asked why. It was said there wasn't enough water pressure up on Van Duzenville Road. Strike number one. Strike number two, the Stanton's garage. God forbid my husband and I are strike number three, or somebody gets hurt during a fire because it couldn't be put out in a timely manner, because there's going to be a major problem. I also want to mention this. The fire department was phenomenal that night. They did a beautiful job, and it was outside of the fire. It was so interesting to watch our fire department work with the other towns, and it was synchronized. They did a wonderful job, as did the police department. And so I just wanted to make sure that they are praised for their work on Thursday night, even though they didn't have the water they needed from a fire hydrant. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Shay Patowski, go right ahead.
Hello, Shay Petoskey, 10 Meadow Street. This is the same line of argument, same vein, but there was, as we know, a garage that burned down on Division Street. Ellen Lair wrote an article in the Eagle that mentioned that there was not enough water in the hydrant to put the fire out. And I just wanted to know, can Housatonic Water Department provide enough water in Housatonic to put fires out for the village? I am also concerned about my safety in my home, and I wanted to ask if we could have the hydrants tested to see if there's a adequate pressure flow from each hydrant. I know that this has been done in the past, and they've given how many gallons per minute per hydrant, and I know there's a limit to hydrant safety for adequacy. I just wanted to know what the pressure flow for the hydrant near my house is. And it was, and my other properties in Housatonic that I own, what the hydrant pressures are near them. And I wanted to see if you guys could get that study done and just have that information published and on hand to know if I'm properly insured and et cetera.
I know the town manager's been in touch with Housatonic Water, so when he's back, we will bring that up. Excuse me. So yes, we will. On a future agenda, we'll talk about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, select board time. Ben, anything?
Nothing for me.
Garfield,
Nothing.
Eric. You're muted, Eric.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
You're welcome. Lee,
Nothing.
and I have nothing at this time. Media. Seeing nothing, by unanimous consent, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.